Oh, the most nerve-wracking bit.
All goes wrong.
Basically. Hello, and thanks for joining us this evening for the next in our live interviews here at Cornwall Film Festival, especially when it's so sunny outside. I've ditched the CFF hoodie this week and I've opted for this nice Hawaiian number. And a big where are you to those who aren't watching live and are watching the recording. Please, we would actually like to know where you've been today. It's quite nice to know when people are watching the recording where they're from. Before I start, let us know where you're watching from if you're watching live. And a big shout out to Film Hub Southwest, who've been helping promote this event this evening. So I'm Henry from Cornwall Film Festival, for those who are new watching, and thanks for joining us. So before we start, a reminder, you can submit your questions via the comments in this video. And a big thank you to Sally from CFF, who's keeping an eye on those. So what we will do is, if I stop sharing that screen, the other thing to bear in mind is if you don't have a question, do feel free to tag somebody you think is missing out on watching this video. The more people who get tagged and the more likes we get, the more people get to see it. So joining me this evening is a man who has worked on such productions as War and Peace, Vanity Fair, Fury, Jason Bourne, Taboo, Death of Stalin, The Last Post, The Crown. I need to put less credits in. Tolkien, Catherine the Great, Strike Back, Gangs of London, 1917, and has played an X-Wing pilot in Star Wars The Force Awakens. Please give a like for Paul Bidus, military advisor for TV and film. Hello, Paul.
Hello.
Right, now I've finished talking, I can check to see people actually watching, and they are, which is wonderful. Yeah. People are saying hello to you already, Paul. Lots of waves and lots of love out there for you.
Yeah. Very nice.
I know. Were those credits all correct?
Yeah, some of them.
Some of them.
In different orders, yeah.
Different orders. Yeah. Okay. Well, the main thing is, you're in some way working on those productions in whatever way that might be, but
yeah,
we'll look at that as we move forward. So, Paul, let's get straight in there and just find out about how you became a military advisor.
Right, it wasn't something I planned, so there was no sort of prior planning to it when I left the army. I left the army after 24 years. I went into the security industry, which most of us normally do, as a close protection officer and a surveillance officer. And then I had some lean period, and an advert came up for an extra agency looking for ex-soldiers to be in a film, and that film was called Monuments Men. I decided to take that up because I was not really doing much at that time. You get out of the army, you're trying to find your feet, and the security industry is a big, very big network as it is. Everyone's buying for the jobs. So I went on to this casting, this open casting. I got picked straight away to be one of the corps sergeants for the film. And then it was really by chance, I got asked to do a certain scene. They did have a military advisor there, a guy called Billy Budd, who was on a different set. He had his assistant. He was further up the road trying to sort out a load of guys that were in the deep background. And I was literally in a Jeep. I was a Jeep commander, and George Clooney, who was the director and starred in it, just said, what I want you to do is just drive up and then you two get out of the wagon. And all I simply did is I didn't know the etiquette really for extras that, you're supposed to be seen and not heard. And I just said, look, can I just make a suggestion? It's D-Day +4. You really wouldn't just drive right up to a wagon because there's potential for ambush. You would be wary of it and you would stop short. And if you just stop short, 30 meters, get out, survey, and then slowly walk forwards, it would be more believable. And it's as simple as that. He took the advice, he ran with it. And then I got asked to do the boot camps for Fury. I was at a very low level at the time. I was still technically as an extra, but as a marshaller as well. So I helped select the best 300 and then select the best 60 out of the core group. And then I was there as a marshal stroke extra along the side, along the whole filming, and offered advice to the ADs. So I was, helping the ADs as well to make sure that the extras were doing what they should be doing. And it just kicked off from there.
I don't know, you're working on some really big titles, as you know, as I said in that list. So my hair keeps sort of falling in its way. I need to like have a hat on or something.
All right.
Just get out of the way. All the hairdressers are closed still. It's kind of annoying. But you're talking a bit about about what you were doing. So you sort of gave some advice to George on Monuments Men. And is that what a military advisor is there for, just to give advice, or is there more to it than that? I mean, how does it work? What stages are you involved?
Right, there is a lot more to it. So I will normally get brought in at post-production and pre-production.
I was going to say, if you're at the end there, you can't make that much of a difference.
Well, I then get into the TARDIS and then go to the beginning afterwards. But yeah, so I get brought in very early on, and what happens, I'll get a script and I'll get asked to look through that script and break it down. And what that means is that any military content, I will offer notes and suggestions. One of the very important things to remember, that you are an advisor. You're there to advise and not to demand. The director, the script have all got their vision on how they want that story to be, or what direction they want that story in. So my job really is to look at anything that might look out of place or might sound out of place. A private calling a sarge, you don't really call them sarge. There's two sarges, there's massage and sausage, that sort of stuff. Correcting terminology, maybe offering some suggestions to shape the action more realistically, and giving them ideas that they may not have even thought of. How, for example, Gangs of London, how you're going to attack that farmhouse, going into a V formation, having your more heavy gunners on the outside, and then doing a flanking attack so you can get around the buildings, that sort of stuff. You're there also to train the cast, and you're there to train the stunts and the SAs to make sure they're holding their weapons correctly and they're not making any schoolboy errors or holding them like airsofters, which you do see quite a bit sometimes. And also to make sure they're acting safely and within the guidelines that the armourer is setting down to make sure that people are safe when they're handling weapons, which is very important. Sometimes I'll run boot camps. If I've got large armies to train, I need to train guys en masse. So, for example, if I've got to train 500 guys, I need to break down a safe system of training that's relevant to the script and what they need to do and what they need to be doing. So I'm not going to get hold of the drill manual for, the Napoleonic, for Napoleonic soldiers and make them do every single drill, because it's just not possible. So you'll get them doing what's required. So I'll look at the script and go, right, I need to do this, and I need to do that, and I need to do this. This bit I can cut out because it's never going to be seen. And then I'll train them on that. First of all, I'll make sure they're physically robust. So we'll go through a selection process, because there's no point having, a load of guys forced upon me by an agency and half of them are unfit or not mentally robust. They can't, swing their arms in sync with their legs. They're doing a thing called TikToking. You really don't want that if you've got a marching scene. And then equally, you don't want some guys that are unfit, if they've got to run 500 meters, get back to start it all over again and keep on doing it every day and still show that same energy. Once we do the selection, then we'll do the training specific. We'll do the weapons training to make sure they're acting safely. We'll select the best guys where if there's any firing. And then I'm there also to help costume, props, there to help the army department, there to help the stunts. So I get in amongst virtually every department. And then obviously, importantly, I'm on the shoulder. I'm on the shoulder, the director of the shoulder. I'm on the shoulder of the director. Yeah. So I'm there to keep an eye, look at the monitors, anything I see out of place, any pockets that are undone, flapping over, someone that's had the wrong rank put on him, for example. Guy walking in saying, "Hi, I'm Major so-and-so," and he's got a captain rank on him. You need to keep your eye out for things like this. People with their pouches flying undone. A Sterling submarine gun, a submachine gun, with the bolt pushed forward, when actually it should be to the rear because of the type of weapon it is. All those silly little things which you do see in films, that's my job, to make sure that I try and get it as close to reality as possible, to make sure that I sort of stop some of the silly blunders that you do see on film sometimes.
No, that's another thing. It's important to make sure those blunders are done, because some people, of course, are there to, when they're watching and looking out for those blunders and like, is something in the wrong place? Is that pouch done? Are they walking right? But as you were saying, the other thing is that it's important that you're training actors or performers to do a part of something.
Yeah.
You're not trying to make them a fully, you're not going to go through the entire drill manual, as you said. It's not that. It's not trying to achieve that.
No.
It's that look.
It's also the character as well. If, for example, if we talk about 1917, George Mackay and Dean Chapman, their characters, one was experienced, one had been to the Somme, one hadn't been. And I wanted to highlight that in their training and show in their training that one was more experienced than the other. One was doing things, George's character was doing stuff that showed he was more experienced, that he was taking his rounds out, blowing dirt off them, placing them in his weapon, closing, and then doing his pouch straight up. Where Dean, I wanted to show him to be more nervous when he's putting his bayonet on, all those little details that some people might not even notice, but you're doing that as well. So you're training your cast, especially your main cast, to highlight their characters and their experience. And the same goes for all the extras as well. Sometimes I'll have a layering of experience. So I'll have X amount of extras with only so much training. And then I'll have NCOs, like non-commissioned officers and officers, and a few older looking private soldiers. And I'll give them a few more hours of training to make them look more sharper, to make them look like they've actually spent a bit of time in, especially Napoleonic stuff as well, Napoleonic warfare, because of the attrition rate.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about 1917 bit, I think, then. Because you were saying you were trained the lead actors slightly differently.
Yeah.
All right, so they had different performance styles. But were you on your own on that project? Was it just you? Do you have a team of people? Because it's quite a big film, lots of people running around, lots of action.
Yeah. Well, when I started off in January last year. I started off on my own to train the two casts, and I just concentrated on them in conjunction with the armourer, and the armourer provided a safe system of training with the weapons, because they were live 303s with very powerful blanks. So we started their training back in January, and then we carried that training on right the way through. Once we started getting the big cast, the big crowds in, I then brought in my assistant, Julian, who was there to help me shepherd guys from A to B, help me. So when I'm doing tactics, he could be there doing a bit of drill. And then we just, as the numbers increase, we got some extra bodies in there to help with the large volume of people we had. And we had like a round robin. We also had the historical advisor, Andy Robert Shaw, who's got a brain like a planet on all things World War One, and he was there to give like a historical lesson with all the equipment, because there's nothing worse than turning up on set as an extra. Someone just plonks a load of webbing over you. You don't know how it's supposed to be correctly fitted. You don't know where things go, and then you just go on set and just stand around. Your pouches are flapping under. You've got a Mars bar hanging out. Your ammunition pouch. And you don't know any better. So I like to train all my guys to understand all the equipment, all the weapons, as well as the tactics and the doctrine behind what they do. And I create a team. So I get them in sections, and they end up, actually forming their own little teams. And you get a bit of competition going between them as well. So they all try, you'll get the best out of them. And obviously treat them, with respect as well, because that's important. Because there are productions that look at them as just moving props, which I really hate.
No, it's important. It's the background that's going to bring it to life. And also, if you're doing anything that does involve period or even just military stuff, there's a lot of people that know a lot about it, and you can have that really nice look and training to it. With 1917, though, we know obviously about most people know about the one-shot stylistic of filming.
Yeah.
Did that give you any particular challenges from in your department?
Not really, because I've done one shots before. I've done one shots for Strike Back, which was probably more technical in terms of it was a gun battle. There wasn't exactly much of a gun battle in 1917. I mean, it wasn't meant to be like that anyway. Challenges really are 500 men with, although the bayonets were like a very hardened rubber, they're still pointy and they can still hurt. You've got 500 guys moving over that trench, and you've got your lead actor running down the side of it. And that was one of the main sort of, training points that I highlighted and drilled into the guys about, how this weapon is going to be held when you're running over the top. Some of you will be holding it this way, some of you will be holding it that way, because we don't want to stab the actor. So really, you had to make sure that when I picked the guys for 1917, that everyone had something up there. I didn't have to tell them twice, because if you're doing a 9-minute scene and you've got all these guys put in the trenches doing all the bits and pieces that they're supposed to be doing, we don't want them looking at the corner of their eye for the camera to then come along. We need them to react sort of naturally, and we managed to pull that off. There was 2 incidences during the trench scene where 2 guys knocked into George when he's running, which is actually, I loved it. I thought it was, far much better than the other scenes where they didn't touch him at all, because I'm like, that's not realistic. But no, that the challenge is, when I was told by Sam Mendes that, really looking forward to working with you. Oh, by the way, it's going to be a 1-shot, so no pressure. I was, oh right, I've only just come back from doing a 1-shot, and that was quite hard. But actually, for this, for my side of it, technically it wasn't as hard.
That's fair enough. So you talk about Strike Back. For those who haven't seen it, Strike Back's a series on Sky, and you're probably better qualified to talk about it, but it's much more contemporary work, isn't it? Than
yeah, Strike Back is originally from a book by Chris Ryan, who was an ex-member of 22 SAS, and it just follows the missions of a MI6 military stroke special forces team that go around the world and save it. That's their job. So nuclear bomb, some rogue armies, and chemical weapons, and that's their job really. And it's basically global. It goes all over the world. And so the last 2 seasons, I went to Malaysia. I spent 6 months in Malaysia, and only last year I had 6 months in Croatia. It's basically about modern British Day special forces.
And so you're saying there's 1 shot. It's quite action packed.
Yeah,
there's a lot going on in that one.
We did we did quite a few 1-shots on the last season, but the season prior, there's a shot there done by the director Bill Eagles, and we went through this scene. I think the first section of it it was about 9 minutes, and it was just a running gun battle. And there's so many, and it was in a very tight shanty town, so it was very, it was quite difficult to coordinate that. And I think we went down there a couple of days prior, and we rehearsed it. I played Warren Brown, for example, even though I'm taller than him. And then we had 2 other stunties that played the other actors. And then I said, right, you're going to go around that way, you're going to go around this way. And then you've got, your DOP saying, well, look, I need to be able to come around this way. And then you've got your soundie saying, well, I need to be able to put a monitor up there. And then the DOP say, right, well, we need to make sure the reflection doesn't catch me as I'm coming around. So everything was like a dance, timed, not only making sure that the camera's going around the actors and the actors are acting naturally and there's no reflections, but also to make sure the gunfire and everything was safe, because there was a lot of rounds. It was automatic gunfire. There's AK-47s, there's M6s, 9mm doing transitionals, stripping rounds off the dead, taking magazines and throwing them to each other. There was a lot of moving parts to it.
And how long do you get to prep all that?
I think we got about a week.
Is that normal? Is that normal, or do you get less, more time?
This is Strike Back. Strike Back is you're doing 10 episodes in 6 months. So that's 10 60-minute episodes, and you got to, and every day is a stunt day. There's the odd crib day, the boring talking day, but mainly it's stunts, boat chases, car chases, gun battles, big fights, and it's constant and it's on the go. So I'm on my own when I do that. So what happens is that, I had my assistant Spencer. He came out to help look after things while I was carrying on with 1917, because they started to cross a bit. And then as soon as I finished in 1917, I went straight back out to Croatia and carried on doing that. You film in 2 blocks, so it's 2 episodes, each block, 5 blocks. And what happens is that while you're filming that first block, you're then prepping for the second block. And then there's only one of me, so I'm going to be on set, making sure everyone's doing everything they should be doing, making sure all the uniforms, all the body armor, all the weapons are correct, make sure that the sights are fitted on the correct way, that they're not, fitted back to front. Luckily, the armorers we got, South African armorers from Higher Arms, are spot on, so those mistakes are never made. And then I will get in a car, and then I'll drive to a recce for the next block. And while I'm doing that, when I get home at night, I've got the scripts for the 3rd block, and I'm doing all my notes for the 3rd block. And that process is constant. So once you finish that block, and normally each block lasts around about two weeks. Once you finish that block, you might have a few days to breathe, and you're straight into the next one. And it's just constant. So that gives you an idea. Like, as a military advisor, some people feel that you just sit there by the craft wagon, chewing on a pack of crisps or whatever, going, "Oh no, you wouldn't do it like that. You'd do it like this." But it's far from it.
No, this sounds almost as intense as the scene you described. I think, really. I mean, you talked a lot about the prep there. Some other projects, obviously, you've been involved in is Peterloo and Vanity Fair.
Yeah,
which are both Napoleonic era sets. Yeah. So it's a bit different again from anything contemporary. It goes back even further.
Yeah.
Did you have to do a lot of research and prep for that sort of stuff?
Luckily, I'd already done War and Peace, and my research for War and Peace was 3 days, because from when I got asked to do the job to go out to Lithuania, I had 3 days to literally get the book out and start learning about Napoleonic warfare tactics and drill. I'm not a historical advisor. I'm not a historian. And again, looking at the script, what's relevant, what's not relevant. Peterloo and Vanity Fair, I was doing literally at the same time. So I was up in, I can't remember the name of the docks now. I was up the dock. There's a big Napoleonic fort. And I was there.
See if someone out on watching or can tell us. I'm sure they will.
Oh, yeah. It was on Peterloo. It was on Peterloo anyway, training the guys in what they needed to do. And then getting in a car, driving to London, and then going on a production meeting for Vanity Fair in the afternoon. And then we went to, like they say, the docks, and we did the whole scene. And it was actually quite funny, because you had, say, the director. He was looking at logically, Mike Leigh, logically, how would we go about this? How would this have kicked off? And also, I'd done my research into Peterloo, but there was nothing there that actually specifically says what really kicked it off. We know we had these guys coming in that were drunk from the militia, but what happened with the actual the trained soldiers? What started it off? And we was in the sand, drawing lines in the sand, and I said, well, look, these horses wouldn't have been involved in war. These would be fresh horses, so they wouldn't be used to large explosions. And quite possibly, if we had one of the guards that's there, just fires off around to try and, with the hope of dispersing the crowd, that then scares a horse that then bolts in, and that means the cavalry's line is broken, and then that's when it all goes all goes chaotic. And Mike's like, yeah, logically that sounds right. And I remember the historical advisor behind me, she was going paging on this book, and I could hear these pages flapping. I'm like, God, I got it wrong. She went, that's exactly how it happened. I'm like, boom.
All that strategic knowledge coming in use.
But that's it. It's more the actual strategic knowledge and the situations, what can cause that in a riot. And that's any riot, not just Napoleonic. That can be even now, today's type of riots as well.
No, we've got some contradictory opinions here on which dock it was. Chatham or Tilbury?
Tilbury.
It was Tilbury, people. There we go.
Tilbury dock. I was involved on Taboo. I was doing armory stuff in Taboo at Tilbury as well.
There you go. See, it's a tiny world, really, this whole film business.
It is.
Right then, I think it's time to move on to some questions from the public. If you're ready, Paul.
I'm ready. Yeah.
You ready? Okay, let me get my list up. So Sally's been working hard here. Gotta get back through the list now. Got all the one. I don't want to ask you about ADR dialogue, do I? Right.
I do help with it sometimes, but
Yeah. So our first one is a sort of a 2-3-parter from Nigel. Do you like working with reenactors, or do you prefer people who are coming with no sort of preconceived ideas of what the role might entail?
sometimes it's good to have a blank canvas, but I also do like to work with reenactors because they do bring their own subject matter expert. Some of those guys will know a lot more than me. That it's what they study, it's what they do, but it has to be controlled. And I always say to when I get reenactors, I always say, look, guys, I know you know your stuff, but here's the camera. This is what the director sees, and there is a story to be told. So it might not be a perfect square. It may not be the line that you're thinking, but it's all to do with camera angles, where the sound can, maybe something has to be worn a different way because sound can't get the microphone and in that right place. And so something may have to be different. And sometimes the budget may constrain on what types of uniform they can bring, blah, 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 blah. So sometimes I do like working with SAs that have no military experience, because sometimes, depending on what type of film it is, a blank canvas is a lot easier to work with. Same as like working with ex-soldiers sometimes. Sometimes it can be good, sometimes it can be bad, because you're having to, if you've got an ex-soldier and he's got a musket and he's holding it like an M4 or an SA-80, and you're trying to train that out of it, sometimes it's harder to train it out.
No, makes sense. And again, it's that important thing that we're creating a world in film and TV that's fictional. And although we're trying to bring the past to life, we're doing it in a theatrical, creative way. So
exactly. And you're never going to get everything 100% accurate unless you're doing a documentary. Yeah, you've got the time, because the documentary is not really a story. A documentary is following the actual story, and the filmmaker's really more interested in everything being authentic without actually worrying about a storyline or an arc for a character.
Yeah. Okay. So next one from Harry. I guess this goes back to when you're in your boot camps. Do you make him do punishment push-ups?
Yes, I do.
Yes, he does. Anything else as well, or just push-ups?
There's all sorts, but it's more safety mistakes. Like 1917 was an example. I had 3 rules. It's your weapon, your webbing, and your helmet. And those 3 items don't leave you. Once you sign those items out from the armory and you take them, from costume, they stay with you at all times. And if they don't, there will be repercussions. Because as a soldier, you're taught to keep those items with you at all times, never to leave them. Now, for a soldier, it's because he needs to be ready to go into immediate action. For an extra or for an actor, they need to be ready to get on set at the moment's notice. And if I've got a guy that's left his rifle, a couple of meters down the road and he's webbing somewhere else, that means he's slow on getting on set. If he's slow on getting on set, time is money.
Yep, no, makes perfect sense. From Tina, do you have any funny moments on set, or anything you can tell us? Funniest moment you've had?
I've got lots of funny moments, but I suppose one of the funny. It was funny for me. Some people might not think it's funny, but it was an armourer in War and Peace, and he was dealing with black powder for muskets, and he'd been working all day. Nice old guy, really loved him, but he'd been working all day and he'd got powder over him. He got black residue. Now the powder can ignite fairly easily. Anyway, during the scene, there was a weapon that didn't fire, so he had to get rid of that weapon by firing it offset. And all he did, remember, he was smiling, and it was snowing as well at the time, so that added to it. And he was smiling, going, "Fire in the hole." Fired it. That ignited, but it also ignited his jacket and his little woolly hat and his eyebrows. He just had a puff of smoke that went up. And all I remember is his eyebrows were sort of fizzing away, but he was still smiling at the same time. And I literally died. I just fell in the ground and couldn't stop laughing.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Must be quite a sight there, especially the snow's coming down.
Yeah. But it says he was still smiling when he was smoking.
Yeah.
It was like, he still had this smile on his face.
Oh dear. Okay, so we have one from Audrey. How do you navigate the differences between all the branches of Army, Navy, Air, and the differences between countries? Whew.
It's not that hard, really. I mean, for example, I'm working on a production at the moment. Can't talk about it, but I've devised a complete new drill system for these soldiers, and I've put some Russian element into it, some Russian drill, some American drill, some British drill, and also some Roman drill. Some's modern, some's Roman, some's Napoleonic, and it's unique to these soldiers. These soldiers carry out a drill that's completely unique, but in keeping with their weapons. So, I mean, drill is very easy, but it's obviously knowing that to answer that question as well is understanding the different relationships and the different methods or terminology that various branches of the arm use. So, for example, bootnecks, they've got their own language, their own way of speaking. But you'd never be able to really put that on a film because most people would be like, what are they on about? We're going to have a sticky and a wet, go down the heads, and then maybe, we'll go ashore later on. No one would understand what I was saying. A bootneck would understand. But there's also some of the, like with the RAF, we say the RAF are civvies in uniform. They have a different sort of, way of dealing with things and a way of talking to their management, as with the Army and as with the Navy. And there's different salutes as well, be it American, Russian, Bolivian. So you've got to do your research as well into those armies. You've got to understand the rank structure. You've got to understand what the ranks are, what the ranks look like. Because again, there's nothing worse than a major being on the gate, and it's not supposed to be a major on the gate. It's supposed to be a private or a lance corporal, and you've got a major sort of saluting a private. Those sort of things, those mistakes you can see on the film. So you're there to avoid that. But it's all down to research, just like Napoleonic, Russian, Roman, or anything else.
No, makes sense. I mean, it's all about taking that bit of time to do it. So this is going back to the strike back scene you talked about. Boris has asked, how many takes did it take?
It wasn't that many takes, to be honest. What happened is once we'd done the first couple of runs ourselves, then you had props and all the other departments came in, put their bits. So I said, look, it'd be good to have a nice bit of cover here. Be good to have a nice bit of cover there. The scribs put in their bullet strikes. There's the FX guys, Adam. Adam is brilliant. Adam Howard, who's a brilliant FX guy. Scribble on you if he's watching. And then the cast came down. The cast watched us do it. So we did a dry run, then watching what we were doing. They then did a walkthrough, talk through. They did a faster one at speed, and then went for it. And I think from start to finish, from start to the first scene where you have a cut, which was the 9 minutes, I think it was done with 2 takes.
Wow.
It was about 2 takes. I smashed it in 2 takes because I remember, because I always do a thing where I don't give the cast too much praise. I never go, oh, you were brilliant, blah, 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 like that. They always look at me and I'm like, yeah, it was all right. That's all I do. I try not to give him too much praise. But Warren Brown, he caught me walking out of the video village, puffing my chest out because I was really proud of them. Like they really looked good and they did it. And then he saw me, just went, so it weren't many takes at all.
That's fair enough. That sounds good. What is the favorite period of history or contemporary that you've worked on so far?
I mean, I enjoy it all, really. It's all a challenge.
Okay. How about a period you have? What period do you want to work on? Is there something you haven't covered yet in your career so far?
I want to do some Roman. I'd like to do some Roman stuff. Maybe a bit more World War II. That'd be nice. to be actually more in sort of engrossed in it as because the last World War II thing I was really involved was Fury, but I was still at a very low tier then. But no, I mean I enjoy all of it. Science fiction. I'm involved in something that's science fiction, which is that stuff I told you about with the drill that I've invented. But no, it's all good. I enjoy it all. Admittedly, sometimes when I'm doing Napoleonic stuff, because I've done quite a bit of Napoleonic stuff, and I was being asked to do more and more of it, I don't mind. I'm hoping to do a job about Napoleon, because I've actually got access to Napoleon's pistols in the armories up in Warminster. Spoke to a mate of mine only a couple of days ago, who basically said, "Yeah, we've got them there, his actual pistols." So I'm looking forward to maybe doing something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's all different. Yeah, I did 6 months in Malaysia doing special forces stuff, playing with all the sort of weapons I love playing with. I came straight back from Malaysia, went straight out to Lithuania. Then I'm just stood in a freezing cold hangar with 200 extras, and I'm holding a musket, and I'm just going through the details of a musket. And admittedly, I did sort of go, "Oh, God, that musket! I've been, all the stuff I've been playing with." But no, I like it all.
No, that sounds good. Let's see what else. Let's see what we got from other people. Ooh, I guess this links in a bit. Do you have a favorite weapon?
I have a favourite weapon. I do like playing with SLRs, self-loading rifle 7.62. It's just something about them. But nah, I like all weapons. I'm hoping to be using what we call a Wombat at some point on a production in the very near future, which is a Wombat is a weapon of magnesium battalion anti-tank. It's an anti-tank weapon. It's a 120 round with a 50 cal spot around it. It's one of the first anti-tank weapons that I was trained on as a young soldier in the parachute regiment. Basically, it's like a tank barrel on wheels. And I'm hoping to introduce that into a film in the very near future, because you don't see them that much. With a very big bang.
Well, I think it just sounds like you like the explosion factor.
Yeah, well, the rear is actually more dangerous than the front end.
Oof.
The rear end it's a recoilless rifle, so all the backblast, it's got 200-meter danger zone in the backblast. So if you're stood in the way of that backblast, it's gonna toast you.
There's definitely some coordination needed for that one.
Yeah, very much so. It's like a cannon team, 3-man cannon team, but it's a very tight team, like a Wombat team.
So we've got one here then from Jeremy. How difficult is it to get an actor to actually look authentic? So stand holding the weapon, using the weapon.
Doesn't take me long at all. I've got a method. Like I say, I never give them too much praise. I actually get them working to impress me. I give them a level, give them a little grade, saying there's different levels that they have to achieve, and the highest level is airborne. And I've had many times, especially Warren and Alin, was that airborne? Was that airborne, Paul? And I'm like, not airborne. You ain't reached that yet. So and they're working hard, and they're working hard to strive for that. And I have it with a lot of other cast. But mainly, I've got the way I teach people, and the way I instruct. I always get the goods first time. They always do everything, and it's not just about holding a weapon correctly. It's looking like they are whatever their character has to show, and that goes for all the extras as well. It's all well and good if you can hold a musket and you can do the proper arms drill to the timing. But if you're smiling and if you're looking like you're just having a nice day and you're actually on a battlefield, then all that training just goes out the window, because it will show on the camera that you're not putting 100% effort in. But no, training every actor from Jason Statham to I don't know, to some mocap artist. I've trained mocap as well. I mean, doing a computer game. Everyone, I have no problems in training.
There you go. Well, it's just all about that time and energy put into making you look right with Paul's training scheme and reward system that he has in place.
Yeah.
So,
also,
Paul,
I will give them press ups. I don't care who they are.
yeah, we'll get so all these A-list actors are getting press ups, are they, when they're on set with you?
Yeah.
Okay. So if any A-list actors are watching this, we should probably try and avoid working with you then, maybe.
Nah, they'll want to work with me.
Or get those press ups in beforehand. So, Paul, come towards the end now. And thanks. So if anyone's watching, thank you so much. A couple of quick questions. Is there anything coming up that you can talk about?
I've signed a number of NDAs. So
No.
at the moment, no, unfortunately.
So anyone who's watching, there's a non-disclosure agreements. Basically means you can't talk about them, which is a shame. But I'm sure we'll see the work out there in the near future once we get out of the lockdown. Fingers crossed.
Well, I've got a couple of scripts that I'm still going through at the moment. So there's bits that are going on, and I am doing something for a computer game. Quite a very big computer game, or sort of franchise, I think.
Something computer game based, so people can possibly go research what big military games might be coming out in the near future.
About Sniper, so there's a clue. I'm sure there's something that there's someone I'll put something, but no, there is a lot of things going on, but everything's held at the moment, and it's when it does start, it's going to be like 3 buses at once, and that's going to be throughout the whole industry because everyone is going to be needing someone on their set, and the people are going to be fighting the other stages, and it's going to be an interesting time.
So what's the first thing you're going to do when you come out of lockdown, Paul?
Well, I'm already getting ready to work on a stage, possibly next week. But as far as
straight back into it, then
I'm going to be straight back into it. I won't be doing any partying. I won't be doing any holiday. I should have been in Malta by now. So whether the production goes right, we're going straight there, or we're going straight to Spain, I don't know. But yeah, I'll be straight into it. I mean, I was non-stop. This has actually been a nice rest for me because I literally was non-stop over the last couple of years. I've been going from one job to the next.
That's fair. Of course, one thing we do need to talk about for those who are watching is Paul's top.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think we need to talk about this. So I'm told this is an iconic, trademarked look that you have.
Yeah, the man in the grey vest. Whether it be whether it be sort of Lithuania in December or scorching hot, I'll be traipsing around in a scabby old grey vest, which I wear until it's falling apart. It's just me. It's just easy to move about, really. So I just, if you see videos and you see stuff that I've done, 9 times out of 10, I've got a scabby grey vest on. So it's not all all glitz and glam.
Start getting the merch out there, Paul. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for watching. I'm just going to put this back up whilst we just before we go back offline and let you all know that next week we're hopefully still speaking to Tim Palmer, DOP, who has worked with Paul on Strike Back. So fingers crossed we'll be able to get that interview out. Might be some work. But Tim's interview's on Thursday, not Wednesday. So anyone who is thinking of tuning in for that one, put some information. I think Sally's already on it. She's put links in the bio already, which is great. So once again, Paul, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. There's a lot of people saying hello, so we'll make sure that you get a copy of all the comments. Thank you all for watching. Have a lovely rest of your week.